All right, welcome everybody to this week's Stable Stories. This is episode 12 with Dynamic. Today we have Itai with us. He is the co-founder and CEO of Dynamic. How is your day going so far?
Can't complain. It's pretty good. It's been a busy morning, but I'm very excited for this.
Busy's good.
Busy's
Better than
good.
the alternative, right?
That's
Yeah,
true.
I like
It's
it.
the fun adventures of startups, essentially.
Yeah, fair enough. Ready to talk about some stable coins and some
Let's do it.
Dynamic? I like it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we kick off every stablecoin story or every stable story episode with like a few minutes of just like background on you. How'd you come to stablecoins? What was your first experience? So, rote question every week for all of our guests. What was your first experience with stablecoins, if you remember it? And how did it sort of like impact your founder journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think myself and my co-founder actually probably have interacted with crypto first in 2012, and so we've been watching the space for a very, very, very long time. And so my first interaction with stablecoins was probably around the time they were launched, right? So very, very early on, you saw, I think, Tether, and then the Coinbase Circle kind of USDC type announcement, and that was interesting at the time. Perfectly honest, at the time I did not understand it. I didn't understand the concept of a stable coin. For me, I didn't understand like I got the trading use case of settling back to stablecoin from Ethereum and instead of settling to off chain and then back to on chain. So I got that use case, but I didn't understand any of the other use cases. And it took a while for me to personally go from like dumb idea to, oh my God, best idea of all time. Right. And so, I had that arc of like, oh, okay, programmable money is actually super smart. But yeah, first discovery probably around launch, actually.
Nice. I had that exact same arc with Ethereum. I was actually telling my coworkers earlier today that I went through that exact same mental process with Ethereum, and as a function of that, missed out on the ICO. So unfortunately, it took me a little. I'm a slow learner, but when you get there, right?
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you every time. I think my new rule of thumb is when I think something is dumb, it's likely a very smart idea, and vice versa. So there's probably a reverse correlation between my opinion on a kind of new thing versus its likelihood to succeed.
Yeah, internal Kramer index. I like
That's
it. Amazing. So how did Dynamic start? And
Yeah.
give me a little background on that.
Yeah, so absolutely. So we started, we didn't actually start touching stablecoin specifically. The way Dynamic started is pretty much this hypothesis that we had in 2021, which was, look, we kind of think that all money movement moves on chain, right? But we had this very clear kind of understanding. I think Solana was picking up at the time. NFTs were blowing up. It was DeFi summer. And it was very clear to us that kind of everything money movement globally is going to move on chain, and it's a matter of time. It's a matter of when, not if, right? And so the hypothesis for Dynamic as a result was, okay, any movement on chain pretty much starts with the wallet and ends with the wallet, and so you kind of need this like wallet infrastructure company that sits there and lets you at the beginning do kind of external wallets, so interact with your Coinbase wallet or your MetaMask wallet or your Phantom wallet, but then also bring in everything that has to do with embedded wallets. So, hey, I don't really, even if I'm moving money on chain, I don't really need to know. Just like I don't wake up in the morning and I say, okay, let me choose between ACH and, debit card and credit card. I just want to pay, right? I don't need to understand that underlying technology of like a international wire, same day ACH when I want to pay. And so in our mind, we said, okay, that the same holds true for crypto. You will need these wallets that are abstracted away in order to do this stuff without users knowing. So that's kind of how Dynamic was started, was based on that hypothesis, core hypothesis, which is if everything moves on chain, then inherently you have to start it with a wallet and end it with a wallet, which in turn means that every app on your phone will have a wallet component to it. Every website you visit will have a wallet component to it. And you need a company that helps you do that.
Makes total sense. And if I could double click a little bit into your thoughts on the UX surrounding that experience at the ends of the crypto transaction. It's occurred to me for a while that we've been building a lot of self-referential tools over the last little while, simply as a function of the fact that the industry hasn't matured to a point where we can really build outward-facing things. And we're kind of at that point now. And how does the UX calculus work for Dynamic when you're thinking about building for a native Web3 audience versus the potential of engaging outside of that space?
Yeah, so it's shifting more and more towards the latter. So when Dynamic started, we started, I think, during a crypto bull cycle, but very quickly after our start, we kind of moved into crypto winter. And that essentially means that most of the developers interacting with the tool set are Web3 developers, right? Or folks that are passionate about this on a day-to-day basis, that's their role. And so the level of abstraction needed was slightly different, right? Folks understood what Veeam is or what Ethers JS is. Folks understood what RPCs are, how gas payments work. And so all of that, or how account abstraction works in 7702 or 4337. And so all of those were abstractions that you didn't necessarily, or Dynamic didn't necessarily need to do in order to get you to that end result of, hey, log in with an email address and get a wallet in the background, which is inherent in what we do, or connect to any wallet across Solana, Ethereum, Sui, etc. Right? And so the level of abstraction was slightly different because the customer base was very much a customer base that asked those questions. They asked, okay, how do I edit my own RPC? How do I kind of batch transactions and do a lot of these very nuanced things, right? As we move to the next set of developers, the abstraction layers need to be very, very different, right? Again, coming back to that analogy of you don't need, as a developer to understand how ACH works or how, Wire works or how Swift works, right? In the same layer, if this is a kind of a new payment rail and payment and identity rail, then our goal is now to abstract to that level of detail. Meaning, can you integrate it with a few lines of code and have that full global payment rail and tap into that experience without necessarily needing to understand any of the complexities that I just mentioned before, right? The gas fees or account abstraction and batching. You don't need to understand any of that. And so the level of abstraction that Dynamic is going for has kind of changed, right? We moved from let me abstract a part of the stack to let me abstract the full stack. It is a good example. We have this, sorry for the long answer here, but we just launched this thing called stablecoin accounts, which is essentially embedded wallets on steroids. It's essentially this ability to say, look, you're a fintech company, or you're a payments company, or you're a payroll company, and you want to leverage this like significantly faster global tech stack, just have a single SDK that does it all for you, right? You plug in a stablecoin account into your end payee's app, and all of a sudden you can move money in there, move money out of it, issue a debit card against it, access yields that are in the background powered by DeFi, but you don't need to know that, nor do you need to know the complexity of implementing it. You should just be able to implement that SDK. So that's where we're moving to, and the level of abstraction we're very much targeting is wake up in the morning, set up Dynamic, by noon you have a full powered kind of crypto enabled app.
Amazing. It's funny, I often think, like, when I see things being built in Web3, I'm like, can you imagine if before you were able to purchase a car, you had to explain in great detail how a carburetor or an alternator worked, and otherwise you weren't able to drive? And that's kind of what we've been building until now. So it's awesome to hear you.
100%, right. Some are even right. We use what's called TSS MPC, right, which is this. How do you secure keys, right? The name of the game, wallet, is essentially a private public key. And the name of the game in embedded wallets is, okay, the private key is really important. How's that secured? And MPC says, well, don't have a private key at all, or rather have different shares, right? But then there's a lot of like internal debate as to how do I explain that, and do I need to explain it, right? Do I need to explain my security model, and do I need to explain the technical decisions I've made, and whether folks care about them or don't, right? So that's like a lot of the nuance here as to what level of abstraction do you choose to provide developers.
Yeah, and even leaving the door open for that more specific modular or granularity for those that want it, and being able to operate high level for those that don't need it.
To your car analogy, right? If I'm coming in and I'm buying a Mazda, I'm like, okay, this is a great car and it does whatever miles per hour. Great car, by the way. Mazdas are great cars. But I might want to double click if I'm like more of a car enthusiast and be like, okay, how does what type of engine is this, right? Yeah. And does it operate this way or that way? And then I might ask about the wheel choice, and I might ask. I'm out of my depth on cars, so bear with me here as I make like a terrible analogy, an analogy that only semi works. But that's, you want to start with the surface of, hey, this car works, and then be able to peel back the layers as needed.
Yeah, you're always going to get your tinkerers, right?
Yeah,
want to dive deep for sure. Forgive me, I realized that we dropped right into this. I didn't give you a chance to sort of go over dynamic itself. Like if you were going to sum up dynamic in a couple of sentences for the audience, could you do that for me real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So dynamic in a nutshell is kind of a wallet abstraction company or a wallet infrastructure company. What we do is the following. If you say, look, I, as a fintech company or a crypto company, I want to be able to have my users log into my service and use my service and not need to know anything about crypto complexity, that's where we come in. We give you an SDK that lets a user log in with their email address or their Google address or their Google login or Apple, etc. We spin up an embedded wallet in the background. It comes with on-ramps, moving money into the wallet, moving money out of the wallet. It comes with the ability to abstract away weird concepts like gas. And it comes with the built-in security that I mentioned, TSS and PC. And then on top of it, it comes with the ability to connect wallets if you know about them, like Coinbase or MetaMask, and a very long set of other features, like the ability to do all of this behind the scenes using a server-side SDK, right? Think about it both as a set of UI components and tools that you can plug in over a weekend. Literally, in a hackathon, you can spin up your version of a Venmo or like a PayPal within a weekend. And it comes with very bare metal APIs where you can quickly expand to have very sophisticated experiences. And you can see dynamic today on companies like Kraken and Kraken's new Inky app. You can see it on Magic Eden. You can see it on Stripe's crypto checkout, Ondo Finance, Maple Finance, Clanosaurus, kind of a myriad of companies that leverage dynamic today, Zero Hash and others.
Amazing. Nice. Switching a little bit from UX to sort of the other side of the coin that I see that's really adoption dependent. Dynamic recently put out a report on the regulatory landscape of crypto around the world.
Yeah.
Wondered if you could talk a little bit about some like interesting findings that your team found from that, and maybe even discuss sort of the considerations the dynamics floating with integrating off ramps based on different regulatory areas or jurisdictions that are in the process of moving it. Because it strikes me that being able to, move funds from wallet to wallet and providing a great UX for that is incredibly important, but so too is the connections to the broader financial system, if we're going to bring that.
Yeah, 100%, right? The fact that we work in crypto does not imply that we should not care about compliance, right? Like compliance we are all in the fintech business. We call it crypto. My argument is, by the way, we don't call it crypto in the next 5 years. We're all just fancy fintech companies. But really, what that means is fintech has a lot of compliance-based baked in, and that's not different for crypto. I think what we found is that we're seeing this really cool trend about more and more clarity as to the rules of the road, right? I think the Genius Act in the US, I think MiCA in Europe, etc., all are starting to provide much needed clarity as to what you can and can't do, etc. And one specific piece of clarity that I think is really important is the concept of kind of non-custody or user-owned wallets or self-custody, which essentially mean, are you a technology company or a compliance company, right? In the case of Dynamic, right, I can provide wallets that you can issue for your end users, but you as a developer don't control the keys. You don't touch them. You can't just move stuff on behalf of the user. And so you can separate yourself a little bit from kind of the financial rails in that sense and give financial services without needing to think about kind of the 7 layers of compliance. And that's kind of a key, really interesting development we're seeing globally, which is clarity on regulation around custody, non-custody, self-hosted wallets, etc. The second part, though, is there is better and better clarity on on-ramps and off-ramps, right? It is now extremely clear that you need KYC when you on-ramp and off-ramp. And I think that's a phenomenal thing because it kind of sets the rules of the road where I can say, look, here's a stablecoin account SDK with Dynamic. Here's where you need KYC. Here's how you do it. And it's no longer a debate of like, we used to have the crypto anonymity debate. When you're now touching fintech rails, that debate is not as relevant. And now it's about, okay, what are the steps and what are the regulations I should follow as a company? And the more clarity, and again, pardon my very long answer, but the more clarity we get on that front, the better it is for everyone, because it means that when we talk to some of the larger fintechs out there, which we're doing on a day-to-day basis, they don't want to mess up a JP Morgan relationship, right? Or they don't want to mess up any of their existing MTLs. And so having that clarity is pretty critical. And I think we're very quickly moving there.
Yeah, makes sense. Knowing what you're building isn't going to get rugged, and the people who are building on top of you also aren't going to get rugged is so
100%.
Liberating.
Yeah.
And unfortunately novel in Web3. Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, so one of the things that I'm sort of like, I'm really interested in learning more about is global accounts that you guys launched recently as well. Would you mind double clicking into that a little bit and going over what those enable?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are two we've learned, I think, within Dynamic, and I think we've had this hypothesis for the last 10 or 15 years, which is every company that grows up wants to be a fintech company, and then every company that grows up wants to be an identity company, right? And a good example is Google, right? Google lets you get Google Wallet and then lets you create a login with Google. Apple, same thing. GitHub, the same thing, right? You can log in with GitHub. You can pay with your GitHub account. And even within crypto, I think an example for the last 24 hours, Coinbase has launched login with Base. Right? That's their concept of identity on Base. And that comes unsurprisingly with a crypto wallet, right? Now, not all companies are the size of Coinbase, which is a $100 billion public company, but a lot more companies want to still offer that kind of identity / fintech experience for their users. And that's where global wallets or ecosystems wallets come in. It's the ability through the Dynamic SDK to create your own identity and fintech layer very, very quickly. And you see that today in action on companies like Say, chains like Say or chains like SoFun that leverage Dynamic or Kraken or Eclipse and others that leverage Gizmo Lab is another example that leverage Dynamic and then create a login with Say button or login with Eclipse button or login with SoFun button that leverage that component of that login with Google type pop-up as well as the underlying wallet. And instead of having to need an entire development team like a Coinbase or a Google or an Apple do, you can pretty much do that again over a weekend with our SDK. So that is inherently what global wallets are, or ecosystem wallets are our SDK to offer you the ability to do that very, very quickly and build an ecosystem around yourself.
Very cool. Especially so I can log in with my Pudgy and
no, that's right. Or log in with Doodles, right? So Doodles is Dynamic Customer or Claynosaurus, right? Like or log in with Rarible or Magic Eden, etc.
It's very cool. Very cool. Perfect. Thank you. I know we're keeping this one relatively tight this week, but I just wanted to know also like what are you excited about that's being built on Dynamic right now? Like what pops in mind is sort of like a really interesting use case, something exciting to you right now?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing over the last couple months is this really quick movement from kind of Web3 focused companies to Web3 based startups that are focused on, non-crypto users. And what that inherently means is you're seeing the new set of neobanks being built, and they're choosing crypto rails. You're seeing the new set of payment apps being built, and they're choosing crypto rails, right? And then you're also seeing the reverse of that, which are the existing neobanks and the existing payment apps saying, okay, let me add crypto rails to my account. And so the use cases I'm excited about are pretty much both, right? It's the ability for a company. We have companies like Endo, which are a neobank, and others that essentially are doing everything that runs on Dynamic as an infrastructure component for identity and kind of wallets. And then on the other side of that, you're seeing some of the bigger fintech, and as an example, I was sitting with a global payment company yesterday. They do contractor payments globally, and they're thinking, okay, how do we spin up these wallets for payees, so a contractor in Nigeria, so that they can receive money really quickly, and that uses crypto rails. And so those two kind of experiences are super, or types of businesses are super exciting, both the ones that are now building businesses that you couldn't build before. Venmo would take you a year to build infrastructure for. You can do it in a week with crypto, or existing businesses that are all of a sudden really open to bringing kind of crypto rails to their system.
Amazing. And it does seem to indicate that the industry itself is maturing as well. Right? We're building these tendrils out to the big boys, which is very cool.
And that's why I come back to, we're all fintech companies, is because it's easier. Like at the end of the day, Dynamic is a quote unquote boring SaaS company. Right? We have an extremely simple business model. We give you an SDK, we charge you money, you get value, we all go home at the end of the day pretty happy, right? That's the way to think about this, right? It's not about necessarily putting crypto front and center, but it's about starting with, hey, let me solve this for you with a faster rail, or a kind of cheaper rail, or a thing that you can do in a day, not in 6 months, right? We start with the value proposition versus the fact that it's crypto rail, which I think is really critical.
Makes total sense. I know we're close to time. Itai, I want to thank you so much for joining Stable Stories this week. Itai, again, is the co-founder of Dynamic, a wallet infrastructure company building for fintech and crypto. In the last 30 seconds, any alpha updates? What's next for Dynamic?
Yeah, the next. So I appreciate, first, thank you for having me on. This was a lot of fun. I think the biggest alpha from Dynamics, we're pretty kind of public about our roadmap, right? Inherently, what you're going to see from us in the next 6 months is more and more abstraction of the complexities of crypto and wallets. Meaning, you set up the Dynamic kind of stablecoin account SDK, and you're going to get more and more of the things you need: yield, on ramps, off ramps, and anywhere in between, to let you have that entire experience with less time required for you, a developer, to spend on this. So that's the roadmap. Just set up a different way of saying this is, if a developer wakes up today, hears this podcast, and sets up the SDK, and just waits, every month you're going to get more stuff that this SDK can do for you, and give your end users like a nicer experience.
Nice. It's just going to work.
Yeah,
it's just going to work. Great. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, the way crypto should be. Amazing. Perfect way to end it. Again, appreciate your time. We'll talk soon. Thank you all for joining Stable Stories this week. Have a fantastic day. Cheers.
Thanks, man. I very much appreciate it.